I think one of the most applicable, or maybe all of them are most applicable, I think probably one of the ones that are easiest to understand would be the parable of the sower this morning. So as we dive in, think about a second reason as to why Jesus uses the parables. He mentions it in verse 12. Jesus used the parables to veil the kingdom from the faithless while simultaneously explaining the kingdom to the faithful. Jesus used the parables to veil and cover the kingdom from the faithless and to better explain the kingdom to the faithful. You see it in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 14 through 16. If you'd like to, you can turn over there, or it'll be on your screen here in just a moment. In 1 Corinthians chapter 2, I want you to look with me in the 14th verse. 1 Corinthians 2:14 says it this way: the natural person does not accept the things of the Spirit of God, for they are folly to him, and he's not able to understand them because they are spiritually discerned. Let's just stop right there for a moment. There's some things that some folk will never understand about this kingdom we preach because there's no spirit inside of them to help them understand it. Now, it doesn't mean that we have a right to be holier than thou. It doesn't mean that we as the people of God have a right to walk around among society looking down our religious noses at anybody. As a matter of fact, if anything, the fact that we've come to Jesus further exalts our weakness in the light of his strength, and we glory in the fact that Jesus did something for us that we couldn't do for ourselves. So the fact that we've come to Jesus and that we understand the things of God and that in brokenness with a burden in our heart have come to him by faith does not give us a reason to be haughty or high-minded or holier than thou, if you will, again. But you do need to understand this. Some of you have shared the gospel before to folks. Some of you have shared kingdom principles to some folk in your life before, and they look at you like you are an alien. Like, what you just said is so far removed from anything that's practical in my life. What you just told me is so antiquated. What you just told me is so yesterday. What you just told me was so first century. It has nothing to do with where I actually live and dwell. And ladies and gentlemen, what I want you to understand is the church of Jesus Christ has always been misunderstood. What you need to understand is that the church has always been misunderstood. Why? Because the church is built on tenets and doctrines and theology and truths that Paul clearly says in verse 14 are foolish to a world that doesn't know the God we know. So, buck up, buttercup, it's going to be okay. If it bothers you that the Jesus you follow results in you being misunderstood by those closest to you, never do you have a right to be unkind. But at some point in your life, you just got to wake up to the fact you just got to be comfortable being misunderstood. Some of you today, you walk through the back doors. There's people driving down the road and said, look at them. Just look at them. And all kind of unfair. By the way, it normally comes by the crowd that waves the flag of non-judgmentalism the highest. And you were thought of as anything but holy today just because you were weak enough to need religion. Now, I'd like to totally rid your life of religion. I'd love you to find a relationship in Jesus. That said, Jesus points to that reality in the Gospel of Mark in the 4th chapter. And I love what he says in verse 9. Mark 4, verse 9. Look at it. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. So I know without a shadow of a doubt today, I'm talking to somebody who has their ears on. That dynamic right there happens every Sunday. That happens every single Sunday of my life. When I first started in this journey as a pastor, it used to really bother me because I thought I was going to stand up and preach, and everybody was as passionate about it as I am, and everybody should be excited as I am, and everybody should want Jesus like I do, and everybody should love the Lord. And that just don't happen. Y'all okay? It don't happen. Terrible grammar, but I'm communicating. At some point in time, you have to finally realize bodies can be in the room, but it doesn't mean your ears are on. Humanity can be sitting on a pew. Faces can be looking your way. But it doesn't mean there are hearts there that want to hear what the Scripture has to say. So if you have ears to hear this morning,